Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. What is possible today on the weekend as we enter in? And I'm so excited because Heather doesn't know this yet. We're here with Power Possibilities, and we're talking about access consciousness. And I just shared just the other day, our very first stream of all time. It was March 14th last year. Can you believe we're almost at this a year,
Oh
providing
my
access consciousness
gosh.
content? And so I had shared our first stream ever, which was March 14th, the day after my birthday. I feel like you were like one of the best birthday presents I ever have had,
Oh, thank you.
but truly I share that because for a year now we have been offering these streams all about access consciousness and the change that it creates in this world, and that's what we're talking about today. And how much fun, to steal Heather's question before we went live, how much fun can we have?
That's like the question I ask for everything. I was asking you when we set this up, like, how much fun can we have with this today? What can we contribute to people?
Ooh, and we already have Debbie tuning in.
Hey,
Hello, Debbie.
Debbie.
Debbie actually was just in our bars class this past weekend. She was one of the folks who
Yay,
just got her certification
congratulations.
as a bars practitioner. And why don't we start a conversation there? Because I always assume that people like know what we're talking about, but they might not.
Maybe not.
So, so what is access consciousness? And why should, not why, but like what can it do for people? Like what's the reason for people to really get into this juicy thing called access?
It's so much fun. And it's the weirdest, wildest, most wonderful thing. And when I discovered it, I was like, this is what I've been asking for my whole life, like this way to change things and invite possibilities. And it's like, how many of you guys watching this have had like dreams and things you'd like to create, and then as soon as you even like have the idea, this whole reality comes in, or especially if you tell anyone else about it, that all these kind of judgments and points of view come in of like, oh, you can't do that, or that's not possible. And that's what really started to show up for me when I started access consciousness, was these possibilities, things that I never could have imagined. How about
Yeah,
you?
yeah, that's the same thing. Well, I didn't even mean to get certified in access. Like I was hosting somebody because like one of the things I do for my business is I host classes and things, and I was hosting Carol Burkowski, and I had double booked myself by accident. So like I wasn't even there the day of the class, and Ryan Dean uh, was there, and he got certified in bars, and then he just said, this class blew me away, which means a lot coming from Ryan because he has like
Yeah.
this engineer mind and he like picks apart everything. And he's like, this blew me away. And so I sit down and I go to get my bars run. And bars is the first thing you learn in act. Well, I mean, there's other classes you could take first, but the main class you take first is access bars, 32 points on the head, correlating to themes of energy. And it's like going into your computer, highlighting in one folder, like call it the folder of love and relationships, right? It's like highlighting everything in that folder that might be creating a limitation for you and hitting the delete button. That's what bars does. It creates a bar of energy that does that. So anyway, he's doing my bars and I don't even remember what happened. I lost consciousness. I wake up drooling on myself, feeling amazing. And I'm like, I don't know what just happened to me, but I like it. And then I went on to become a bars facilitator and now host people like Heather to come in and teach like the other classes that certified facilitators teach from around the world. And that's probably a good thing to mention too. Like, what exactly is a certified facilitator? Because that sounds, I know what it is and I know it's amazing. But how would you describe what it is that you do?
Well, there are certified facilitators around the world who've studied, really intensely studied the tools of access consciousness and desire to live them and share them with the world. And one really dynamic class that all of the CFs, the certified facilitators, get to facilitate is called the Foundation of Access. And it's so exciting because it changes at least once a year.
Hmm.
And it's, you get a manual, there's, standard things that we facilitate in the class, and it's also based on the energy and the questions of where the class is and who's in the class and what they're looking to change. And it just becomes this amazing contribution to the people and their bodies.
I literally take the class 2 times a year because I usually I host Heather once, and she comes out and does it, and then I do the global foundation, which is where they like rewrite the book. But like,
Yeah.
but Well, there you don't really get as much one-on-one attention because there's like thousands of people in that class. So it's like I take it from my television and I'm like watching. But the thing is, like when it's in person, every class I've ever taken with Heather has been different. And I've also taken it with other facilitators in person. And for me, like Heather has always she's like a bloodhound of consciousness. Like you ask a question, like, I don't know where I'm stuck. And she's like, what's really going on here? Like she doesn't talk like that. I'm embellishing a little bit, but like you see her little access, radar go up and she's like, let's find where the stuckness is. But she doesn't like point it out for you. She asks you questions.
Mhm.
She asks you questions. And in the way that I can't even describe it. It's just like this magical rabbit hole of possibility. Like one person asks a question, which leads to another question, which leads to an awareness. It leads to another question, and before you know it, the whole class is like, and we don't even know what happened, but we're like, wow, everything's different, and it's like because everything is different. Because point of view creates reality, and that's what this foundation class does. I used to think that it was like the foundation of access, but what it really is removing the foundation that your life had been built on to clear the ground for you to start building how you know you can be in the world. And
Yeah.
it's revolutionary. Like that's why I'm a foundation addict. I love it. And then you also, well, anything you want to say, because I could go off on another tangent about foundation that really excites me. But from what
Ooh,
I
let's
said
do
there,
that, let's do that.
okay, well, the tangent. Okay, so access bars is like a body process. In
Yeah.
foundation, you learn more body processes. And so it's not like just
Mhm.
the 32 points. There's MTVSS, which I can never remember what it stands for, but it's a long weird sounding name that I think helps because when you can't remember what it is, it's like you just don't have a limitation of
You
defining it.
just do it.
Right, because when you define something, that is a limitation. It's a judgment. It's a conclusion, and that's one thing access is about. It's like ask a question to gain an awareness, and not to gain an answer. You don't want to make up something of solidity. So, like, I love it when I can't remember names of body processes. I think they name them that way on purpose, so like it makes it hard. So, like, you're just like, I'm going to run that thing that I remember, and now it's more, you know, flowy and
I
able to,
know.
yeah, but you learn MTVSS. There is cellular memory, which imagine like as a kid being told crying, right? This is my true story, by the way, crying, and everybody and my parents say, like, don't do that. Everybody's looking at us. You know what's told there,
Don't make a
right?
scene.
Right. Don't make us see what will the neighbors think, right? But what happens there is what energetically look at what really is being said. Hey, don't be. You
Yeah.
want to care about that person's judgment way more than what you're being right now. Don't be.
Mhm.
And that's like the cellular memory process, like that gets frozen in there. And this body process starts to unfreeze the places where we have this locked up emotion.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I love that description of it. I mean, and also too, it's about like returning our bodies to the memory
Uh,
of, you know, before any trauma or remember also like when you're a kid and you're just like running around and you're free and you fall and you skin your knee and you just keep going because you're having so much fun, but like there may be a little like something
mm,
in there, and that's like a body process that you can, of course you can run these body processes on yourself, but they're like 1,000 times more dynamic when you have someone else
yeah.
gift it to you.
And part of that, I think, is just being vulnerable with another human being. It like
Yeah.
loosens the mortar that holds the judgments in place because like once someone else knows your shit too, then
Yeah.
it's like it loses its hold on you, and then it makes it easier to move and to shift. And your thing about falling down, when my son, we were at the park one day, and he's running and he falls down, and like there's like a group of people coming from the other direction. They're all like, okay, so like already like what's going in his mind, and I go to him, I'm like, Max, did you hurt the ground? He's like, huh? I'm like, did you hurt the ground? He's like, no. I'm like, good. And he just got up and like, point of view creates reality. And when we get a point of view projected in us, like, oh my gosh, when you fall down, it's got to hurt. It's got to be this big deal. What
Mhm.
becomes your reality instead of, wow, I fell. Cool. I'm just going to get up and go play. Like, I see it happen both ways with children. And it's like, how many times, oh, I'm sorry, tangent again. Did you watch, you were there for Global Bars Day.
I was
Oh,
live on the
okay,
ground.
okay, so, like, everybody, this like, we had a global bars day at the center. People came in throughout the day getting, just access bars gifted to them. We were just running bars. It was a great time.
Oh,
And then
beautiful.
and I saw Heather one time at the very beginning, but then, like, they didn't really show the room much
I was
after
I
the
was
day
in
got
the
started.
background.
But, But Dr. Dane here, one of the co-creators of Access Consciousness, he was there for a live presentation, and or maybe this was in the video. I'm not even sure now if it was in the video or the live presentation, but this thing beyonded me, and I was just like, whoa. And so, like, get ready. He said that your reality, your points of view that create your reality, get like instilled upon you from your parents or caretaker before you are even old enough to talk.
Yeah.
It's like pre-verbal stuff. And that's one of the beauty thing, one of the big tools in Access, and we go over it a lot in the foundation class, is the clearing statement. It's like the magic wand. And the one that I want to focus on, because we could do a whole stream just on the clearing statement, is the concept of boys, which is nucleated spheres. And it really speaks to this pre-verbal stuff that Dr. Dane was talking about. It's like
Yeah.
you have this impact, and it's like bubbling these things up, and it's like showing up in your reality, and you pop a bubble and another one fills in, you pop a bubble, another one fills in. The source is way back here where you had the point of view, I'm not worth it because mommy said the diapers are expensive, and I don't even know what those
Exactly.
words mean, but I know what she was feeling, and I know it's my fault. And like, look at all the binding up that happens before you can even talk.
Yeah.
And the clearing statement, especially boys, it's like the nucleated sphere is the bubble pipe of like the chaos of your life. You stop the flow, and like, wow, once that bubbling stops, like you have a lot more clarity, and it
Y
makes it a lot more easy to respond in the world and actually consciously choose instead of reacting based on what you think you know and how people are expect you to show up in the world. All right, now
yeah.
I'm running on so many. I had lots of coffee this morning, and Heather didn't know. Otherwise, she'd be like, "You should like go run a marathon before we get on," because like, I'm sorry, like I'm. It's been
Oh,
a
and
great
it's
morning though.
exciting. Yeah, we haven't talked in a couple weeks, so I'm really excited about, yeah, what else is possible and, what else can we contribute to people and talk about that would create
Yeah,
more?
yeah, and we just have so have we already said good morning to Debbie. Magic Mike is tuning in, one
Magical
of our
Mike, hello.
resident Access Space cadets. If you ever have your bars written for Magic Mike, there's a special element of space that occurs. It is just amazing. And we actually did a practitioner share yesterday, and
Oh, awesome.
Ernie was just saying he can relate to the frozen concept.
Hey,
It's
Ernie.
yeah, and it's really like we Access gives you the tools to show up
Mhm.
and to start choose living a conscious life, empowering you to know that you know, trusting your knowing instead of, you know, falling into the roles that, like, especially everybody who just had a holiday, which I think is almost everyone, you know, Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. Like, if you're not around your family, like, how many people go back to your family and you start to slip into roles because that's how you need to be received? Like, I know this, we experienced this with somebody close to me's parents that were visiting. I'm not going to
Yeah.
say who, just in case, you know, they're ever watching. But like, if they only see you as the little girl, like,
Yeah,
and that's who you choose to be, it's really difficult to. It can be really difficult if you don't have tools. You know, I will say this, that this is the first time that we've had a visit with these people where both of us were using access tools,
wow.
and it was the smoothest it's ever been. Like, I
Mm.
can't, there was not a single instance where there was like a moment of kindness and someone's like leaving the room or anything. There was like space. And
Yeah.
and all that was really because there were two people that had a similar set of tools, that now that we're kind of, you know, facilitating each other through things and asking what else is possible, and when you get triggered, hey, what's this really about, and like going back
Mhm.
and using these tools. And I'm really hoping that this person will also be taking foundation to get even more tools.
How
but
does
but
it get any better?
right, but that kind of
Yeah.
segues into the next thing about foundation. The other element that is there that I feel is just, well, there's one more body process. There's, do we do zero sum of trauma in foundation, or is that a
No, the
different?
other one
No.
is the biomimetic mimicry, which when I
Oh,
tell people about this one, it's really like the perfect segue from your story just now. It's unlocking the places where we're making ourselves into something that someone else either needs or requires us to be physically or physiologically, psychologically, financially, and it gets us out of the place where we've been really understanding the insanity around us and becoming it, embodying it. And it's a way to unlock
yeah.
it. It's one that you learn in foundation, and then it's an amazing tool in relationships. And it's so easy to do with
Yeah.
someone you share a bed with.
Yeah, you know, it's a question that somebody threw out. I forget now for sure who it was, so I don't want to misquote someone, but they they
Mhm.
they were acting very weird. They were filling one of those roles, and they asked a question, "Who am I being right now?" And as
Yeah.
soon as they asked that question, they're like, "Oh, I know who I'm being." But like as soon as you ask a question, you're taking yourself out of the space of reaction, and you're putting yourself into the space of possibility. Because instead of reacting, you're now really asking, "Hey, what's up?" And just that, you're in a space to actually make a conscious choice versus, hey, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants and just hoping to get, to the end of the race here. But
Mhm.
biometric mimicry, like how much from my whole thing with Dr. Dane, your whole reality is formed by points of view, maybe not whole reality, a bulk of your reality is formed from points of view from before you were able to talk from the people who you were around the most, whether that's your parents or whether that's a caregiver or a babysitter or
Babysitter, yeah.
orphanage, like, like whatever your situation is, who was really around you, and what did you buy as a reality that isn't really a reality?
Mhm.
And that's what foundation does. It goes and it takes all that stuff like a bulldozer. It's like and just rips it out, and then like you pour, you build then on a. I want to say it's kind of like a houseboat because you don't have to stay in the same spot. Like even like whatever you're building, you can totally take that shit with you and go somewhere else. Like your regular house, you can't. It's like gives you that much possibility and freedom in life for whatever it is you're going to choose.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's just I was talking to someone the other night and they were saying like, "Wow, I just really would love more tools to have more freedom." And I was like, "Well, that in a nutshell is the foundation because the prerequisite is access bars, as Hank has mentioned, and that in and of itself is a beautiful day, amazing tools, an amazing body process. And then when you've like gotten to this place where you're like, I would love more. I'd love more of me. I'd love more freedom. I'd love more, as Hank mentioned, ease in my relationships, ease with my family, ease showing up as me. Then it's time maybe for the foundation."
Absolutely. And I just put a link if you want to learn more. And there is another video embedded on the website of me and Heather talking about foundation from last year before she came out. Though I think I'm going to replace it because this conversation has been a lot more fun. At
Oh,
least I
it's so
think.
much fun.
Well, because it's
Yeah.
in the moment, like like that's the thing,
Yeah.
like really showing up. What would it take for you to show up? Oh my god! And there's one
Hmm.
other thing about foundation that I feel is we haven't touched on. That is a wonderful gift from Dr. Dane here, and that is one of the energetic. I forget ESC, energetic
The
synthesis
ESCs.
of communion, and I don't even I think Mary, there was one person who took the class last time, Mary Lee, and afterwards, her response says it all. She's like, "What the hell was that?" And it was amazing. Like because we didn't paint the picture of what was going to happen. So all I will
Yeah.
say is Dr. Dane leads you through this process
Hmm.
and go into it without. And this is really your recipe for life with everything, right? You go in with no expectations, but the awareness of infinite possibility. And I can speak for
Yeah.
myself. My first foundation with Heather, like people thought something happened to me because like I'm crying and I was just like crying. I don't know how long, but it was a while. We'll just say it's a while. We don't have to have judgment around that. And then I started laughing uncontrollably.
Yeah.
And then I got
Releasing.
yeah, and then I got up and I was like, wow. And Heather's just like, some people got more out of that than others. And then it was lunchtime. But the cool thing is nobody went to make my experience a solidity.
Yeah.
In access, it's like if someone's crying, you like hand them a tissue, you let them be. You don't want to like
Give them
compress something.
space.
And
Yeah.
all I can say is it really was this experience of awakening that allowed me to have more of me than
Mm.
I like. I mean, I've taken a lot of classes from a lot of things, but foundation in the nutshell, 4 days of class is like where some of the other things I've done took 2 years to go through. It's like, well, I wish I had known about this thing sooner. But
I know. I wish I was a kid, like, having had foundation. Could you imagine taking standardized tests with these tools? Oh
yeah.
my
Oh,
gosh.
although, like, so Max, my son MacMillan ended up getting detention. And I'm not going to say the manipulation I gave him. And manipulation is a skillful handling of the energy. And he got in trouble
Of
for
course,
something.
to create a greater
And
possibility.
like he told me to say, I'm like, go to the teacher and say this. And he went to the teacher and said that he got out of the detention. And it's so like it's just like it
Brilliant
was really
dude.
following the awareness of like, look at the situation. What would be an honoring of you? What question could you ask here to create a different possibility? That's really what we were asking. And he followed
Yeah.
through, he asked, and it's just like, it changed everything. And so, like, right now, what question could you ask of yourself of what would create the most for you in your world? And is foundation, because this is the crux of one part of the reasons we do the streams. What we are really being right now is the invitation for you to
Yeah.
choose more consciousness in your life. And one amazing way are the tools of access consciousness through bars and foundation. If you don't have a bars class and you don't see one between now and when we have the next foundation, which is next month on February 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st,
Woohoo!
I do bars on
Come play in
demand.
Cleveland.
Like literally you send me a message, we set up a class and we do bars. And we get you the prerequisite, and we did that for talk to the entities. For one
Yeah.
person, they needed a bars class, and I met them, and I had people come in to do trades with them, and we ended up creating the class like right before talk to the entities, and off we it was great. And so if it calls to you, really the question, the one tool that we should talk about, Heather, before we wrap up, is the tool of heavy and light, because I know that that is what allowed you to come to the awareness of what you would like to choose in terms of what is going to create more in your life. Why don't you tell that story? Because I like it.
Yeah, I mean, really, the question that changed my whole life and world and future was, I heard Dr. Dane here, the co-creator of Access, on a radio show, and he gave the tool of, if you choose this, what will your life be like in 5 years? And if you don't choose this, what will your life be like in 5 years? And it suddenly got me into this place where I was looking at the future that every choice would create, rather than just functioning from these kind of conclusions or these kind of static realities, or other people's realities or desires or requires. So I was finally looking at and actually asking a question about, well, what would create a greater future for me? Because I would go with the energy of what had a lighter, more spacious
Hmm?
kind of future when I asked about it, and then what was heavy and contracted. Even if I did choose that, sometimes I would get so much awareness of like, oh, that's what I was aware of when I asked that question. So that was huge for me.
Yeah, and I use that tool to this day for, you know, Gary Douglas would say, you ask it for everything, even chewing a stick of gum. And Dr. Day
Yes.
made fun of him. He's like, why would you ask it to chew a stick of gum? And Gary's like, well, what if you choked on the gum and died? It's like, oh,
Exactly.
like, so like it takes like a couple things. It takes you a little bit of time to ask a question, but what does that mean? It means that you are present enough to show up and ask the question to
Yeah.
begin with. And it shows your willingness to have a different possibility to the universe. And in that space, can you see where instead of being in the autopilot of life and reacting through everything, being present, asking a question, and choosing something different that might put you on a different trajectory. And don't even think about like the short term. That's why we say 5 years, because like foundation, if I take it today, a week from now, maybe it doesn't feel so different, but 5 years from now, my whole world has changed. And I
Yeah.
see other people who have been looking in at people who have taken access. Won't mention any names, but they see people like Seven Glory Sunrise who took it and her whole life exploded.
Hmm.
Brian Dean, myself, same thing. They see the people that take the class and like their whole reality changes. It's because your whole reality does change.
Yeah.
And ask the
Yeah.
question. I invite all of you to ask it now. Like, if I were to choose bars, if I were to choose foundation, how does your life feel like in 5 years? I invite all of you to ask that question. There's no shoulds or
Yeah.
shouldn'ts. Like, you're welcome to make the choice on your own to ask the question. And if you don't feel like asking the question, like, I really wonder what's that about. Are you afraid that it's going to feel light and you have to deal with me and Heather and like all the crazy access people? Like, what's it
So
really
much
about? If it feels
laughter.
heavy to ask the question, like, what's that really about? And might that then be like an unwillingness to, because this was a big thing for me even recently, my willingness to receive from the universe. I've still had like, it's like I need to have a one-on-one with Heather, work through my resistance to receiving, because I mean I do very amazing things, and like I know I'm on a fraction of what I could be doing.
Hmm.
And Dr. Dane talks
Hmm.
about that too, doesn't he? Like, even as long as he's been doing access, he's like, I might be at like, I don't know what percentage, but he's always like looking and asking questions and discovering more and creating more. It's like, wow, man, like it's just really an inspiration to see someone in access like that that's constantly asking those questions, constantly creating more. And the invitation is for you guys, like, what would you like your life to look like? That's what started access so many years ago. I invite you to ask it now. What would you like your life to look like? And if you were to choose foundation 5 years from now, how does it feel? How much of a
Exactly.
contribution could be? No, I say that jokingly, but really, like, That's and on my personal streams too, I tell people it's like really being the invitation to be the contagion of consciousness and wake up the planet and
Yeah.
start being like, the amazing species we could be if we were in collaboration instead of competition.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
it's always like Hank mentioned the heavy and light tool, and really to know that you alone know what's true for you and what's gonna work for you. And the heavy and light tool that you learn in Access Bars class is empowering you to know that something that is true for you is always going to feel light for you. And when you consider doing it or choosing it, it's going to have a lightness and a space to it. And what's alive for you will always make you feel heavy and contracted and less than. So, when you consider choosing something or doing something, um, or when you hear a piece of information, if it's true for you, it's gonna make you lighter. If it's alive for you, it's gonna make you heavier.
And there's something I want to share because, like, let me paint the picture first. When we started doing our bar shares, we like our bars clinics. People can come in from the public, they can literally donate whatever they want.
That's
And I started
beautiful.
and I started asking the question, like when people were getting ready to donate, and we went from maybe bringing in like 20 or $40 a night, maybe. And started asking this question. I asked the question to the people, like, what would you need to contribute in order to receive everything that your practitioner actually gave you? And
Wow.
we had some people go from like putting $10 in to putting $50 in. There's been some nights we've had several $100s all from donation. And the reason I bring this up, because like, when you look at foundation and you look at some access classes, you will see that there is an investment involved. And because this isn't a future or past, people might be watching this in replay, check out the website for the current, investment. But really ask yourself, what would you need to pay? And then you might feel it's underpriced, really. What would
I
you need to
know.
pay?
I
What
know.
would you need to pay in order to receive everything the class has to offer? Because I know from personal experience, when I have gifted something,
Yeah.
people don't appreciate it.
They
And
value it as much as they've paid
they
for it in
do.
some cases. Yeah.
And this is a topic, and I got goosebumps as I'm saying this. This is a
Ooh.
topic that I think sometimes when we talk about foundation and access classes is danced around because sometimes maybe I'm feeling people's uncomfortability with like hearing about price and stuff like that. But with everything you buy, like really ask them, what would I need to pay to receive what I'm being gifted from it? And for yourself, if you're self-employed, if you're a healer and you're doing this work, this is when I raised my prices. I like went over double what I used to be. And I was like really uncomfortable at first, but I asked a question and I'm still lower than what I know it could be, right? But I asked a
Yeah.
question like, what would I need to charge for people to receive everything that I
Yeah.
could gift them? And I
Yeah.
went from $60 for a half hour to 111 and 222 for an hour. And this is if this isn't a replay, like it might be more now, so don't like quote me
I
on that.
know.
I just
Don't
like
hold
just
him to
thought that.
that.
Yeah, but like for you, what you offer to the world, and don't look at. And anyway, you get the idea. Like get the energy of that, and when you look at the investment and things, like really know like what am I really receiving, and trust and know that this is a value. And I have paid more for programs that did less for me.
Oh my gosh, me
And I'm
too.
and
Yeah.
Zane, in case you're watching, I'm not talking about the Qatari tradition, right? I'm talking about other things, because like
Yeah.
there's some things that have given me great value, and there's other things that just didn't do it. And one of the things that Access is really about is empowering you to know that they don't have answers; they have questions for you to become to your own awareness. But they do it in such a dynamic way that you just start showing up more. And if you've seen me over the last couple of years doing these streams, starting to show up as COVID hit, this is an example of, and I'm not saying you have to go out in the public and, if that's not your thing, like people do it different ways. There's doctors that use this and, people from all walks of life. So don't feel you have to do what we're doing, but whatever your unique voice in this world, it allows that to come forth more, whatever that is, whether you're mowing grass, doing hair, facilitating people, whatever it is, you could create so much more with that unique voice without the limitations of however you were taught to be versus who you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
So beautifully put. Thank
Is
you.
there anything I know I've been all Heather, thank you for dealing with my insanity because I feel like I expected like you talking more, but I'm just like it's like one of those little dolls or the Energizer Bunny zoom off I'm going. So I so appreciate your allowance of my craziness.
This was so much fun. I'm so grateful. And yeah, there were so many topics that we could have just like totally explored today. So this has really inspired a lot of future streams.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. Like we have so much more to talk about now.
yeah,
This is like the outline, and now we can do like some deep dives into things, you know?
yeah, I love that.
But anyway, thank you all so much for showing up. I know
Yeah,
there were some comments we didn't get to them. Maybe we'll pull them up on the next stream, or we'll speak to them. So, because we're already like way over than what we
I
planned. But
know.
sometimes that happens in the moment. But we love you all. What would it
Thank
take for you to
you.
choose you? And we will catch you
Yes.
next time. Bye.
Bye.